Welcome back, everybody. Today it is me, Stateside, and we're going to be taking a look at every Premier League team and what their bold prediction is for the 2025 calendar year. No specific order here, as you already know. We do this in totally random order, but starting off with our first club, we've got Brighton. And I think that maybe this isn't super bold pick here. It's the most bold I could come up with, but I think they will have at least one player by this time next year. We're talking about 100 million transfer. They kind of, since they sold, I believe it was Caicedo, they haven't really had a name that people put with 100 million other than Evan Ferguson, but we've seen what's happened to him recently and his form dropped. I just don't see a world where he is that 100 million transfer. I think a few players, Minta, Yassine Ayari, if he continues to perform, Carlos Baleba, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that name. Minta, Adingra, Ayari, and then of course Evan Ferguson if he finds his form once again. They obviously are a team that makes waves in the transfer market, and so we could see that. I think that by a year from now we'll see what player that's going to be. Up next we have Wolverhampton Wanderers. They've had their ups and downs this season, mostly downs, but they look to be back on the up. I think they'll be sitting comfortably 14th or higher with an 8-point cushion by this time next year, and I think that they could be easily by the end of the 25-26 season. I think they could easily be a top 10 team. I think they've got a lot of talent. I think if Matthias Cunha stays, Wang Hee-Chan stays, I think they sort out their center back position. I think they are comfortable mid-table team. Now we've got arguably our most controversial pick of the video. Brace yourselves. Liverpool, you're not winning a trophy this season. That's what I'm going to say. Liverpool fans, there's not going to be a sign of silverware. I think that you'll probably lose the EFL Cup final to either Arsenal or Newcastle. I think that the FA Cup you might have a chance in, but I don't think you win it. I think you fall short in the Premier League and the Champions League because I think there's too much outside noise going on right now. You have three of your best players available for pre-contract, so their mind's elsewhere. They're talking to club. Trent's talking to Madrid. Salah's probably talking to Madrid as well at this rate. Virgil van Dijk, another player that can be speaking and agreeing on terms with foreign clubs. We could easily see those three by the end of January have a new club lined up for the summer. And so it's, it may be a tough pill to swallow, but sometimes rebuilding takes longer than you think. And I think that's why Liverpool aren't going to be walking away with any silverware this year. Now we've got Ipswich Town. Despite their best efforts, a relegation on the final day is what I am going to say is going to happen. I think there's another team that's going to be fighting until the final day as well. I think it's going to be very, very tight in that or in that bottom three spot, but Liam Delap will move on, and we know that. I think that's pretty clear. I don't think that's very bold, but they'll likely see Amari Hutchinson stick around, and I think that Kieran McKenna will stick around and help them bounce back. There is one club we're going to talk about who could go for him, and we'll talk about them a little bit later. Now, Arsenal, the club I support, obviously, I'm predicting 2 trophies. I think they'll win the EFL Cup. I think Arsenal will beat Newcastle and Liverpool or Tottenham for the EFL Cup. I think that we do go and win that, the Carabao Cup, with either Premier League or FA Cup. I think if anyone's going to take away the Premier League from Liverpool, it's going to be Arsenal. And then I think that the FA Cup we can compete for. I don't think we're ready for the Champions League just yet. But I do think EFL Cup and Premier League will be the 2 trophies that Arsenal hunts down this season. Now, another team fighting for European spots, we've got Nottingham Forest. They've got a really good chance this year of making it into the Champions League, a team with European history. I think by this time next year, we're going to look at them and be like, that team's going to make the Champions League round of 32. They're going to be, or excuse me, is it round of 32 at that point? They're going to make the first knockout round, I should say, is where they will be at. Everton, you have new owners, you have a new stadium coming next season, but you're not going to have a new manager. I think Sean Dyche will maintain his position as the Everton manager. I think by this time next year, you're going to be about 12th. You're probably going to be about 12th position. I think you're going to be not really fearing relegation, but you're not going to be challenging for much else. Maybe you turn your attention to a cup and try to make a drive there, show some ambition in a cup competition, but I don't think Everton will win in much of anything. I think stability is what 2025 is about for Everton. I think they've done a good job of that. I think continuing that trend and really solidifying a solid team, making the transition to the new stadium without being relegated, getting the new owners in, getting everyone settled. I think by the end of the 2025-2026 season, then we'll talk about potentially sacking Sean Dyche and going in with a new manager with a new vision under the owners. But I think getting that stability, getting the team set the way they want, is going to be the big story for Everton this 2025 season. Now, up next, we have Newcastle, a team that's clearly having difficulties after getting the takeover to find a financial situation that is working for them, because they seem to always, every transfer window, be struggling for finances. I think Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, Isak, and Gordon are the 4 players that are in the chopping block. I think they lose 2 of them by the time this summer to a Big Six club or one of the 2 La Liga giants. I think Isak goes to a Big Six club, either a United, a Chelsea, or an Arsenal. I think Tonali could make a move back to Italy, and I also think Bruno Guimaraes could make a move to pretty much any club in the world at this rank. I don't think Anthony Gordon really moves. I think he's just one that could move, potentially if they need the finances really badly. But I think Anthony Gordon's there to stay at Newcastle. Aston Villa, this year you are going to go on an FA Cup run. West Ham you face in the next round in about a week's time, and you're going to make a run. You're going to make it to the semifinals, but you're not going to make it to Wembley. I think you'll just come up just short in the semifinals. I think it'll be a close game in the semis where you eventually fall out to one of the Big Six powerhouses. But I think Unai Emery's men, especially given the fact that they're competing on so many different fronts, including the Champions League this season, I think a FA Cup journey for them will be seen as a win. Southampton, I have good news and bad news. I think the bad news you already know. You're going to get relegated this season. But I do think you keep a lot of your talent. I think you keep a lot of your better players. I think your defensive line maintained. I think your goalkeeper, Ramsdale, stays. I think that you will be top by Christmas of next year in the championship. Up next, we have Chelsea. Cole Palmer will be registered for the Conference League. We are going to make it, obviously, to the knockout stage. He'll be registered for those knockout matches. And I think you go on, you win the whole thing. And I think we're talking about Cole Palmer being a World 11 player. I think it's pretty cut and dry on that one. I think that he's obviously going to be one of your best players in the competition, and he's been one of your best players this season. I think he's going to continue to shine. No international tournaments this summer. So I think that this will be an opportunity for Cole Palmer to express himself and really go all out this season. Leicester City, you have Premier League dreams, but they end on the final day once again. Relegation on the cards for the final day along with Ipswich, and this is going to see another striker leave. Jamie Vardy will retire at the end of this season following a second relegation with Leicester City. Now we've got Tottenham Hotspur. I think Ange Postecoglou eventually does get the sack in 2025. And I think that they do go a different route with their manager, an interesting route, an English route, that is. I think you've got managers like Graham Potter, Ryan Mason, who's been the interim manager a few times, Gareth Southgate, Will Still over in France. Kieran McKenna was born in London, obviously Northern Irish nationality, but he's English as well. I think that there's quite a few options there. I think that they will go with an English coach in the future. You also have Eddie Howe from Newcastle. If Newcastle decides to move on, you could see him make the move to Tottenham. Bournemouth had a very drastic rise over the last few seasons with Iraola at the helm, and I think that they'll be a team that on the final day will be fighting for a European spot. They'll make an EFL Cup run as well this next year. I think they may make it into the semis, and this time next year I'm previewing a semi-final matchup with Bournemouth in it. I think that they could nearly miss out on their European race to Fulham. I think they will actually lose to Fulham on that final day, or not lose to Fulham, but lose the European spot race on the final day. And now West Ham, I think despite a very slow start to this season in 2024, and the rumor mill, swirling around players like Lucas Paqueta, Gerard Bowen, Mohamed Kudus, tons of players like that. Stability could be the key, and I think that's why Julian Lopetegui will not get the sack this season. Crystal Palace, you're going to turn Eberechi Eze into the next Wilfried Zaha. And by that, I mean you're going to offer him a contract as his contract's expiring every time, and he is never going to leave your club, and you are never going to sell him because you can't afford to, because you can't bring in the creative sparks that you need. You brought in a few players this transfer window, of course, but you're not going to have a player of Eze's quality, just like you were never going to find a player of Elise's quality as well. Now we have to talk about Brentford. Big changes there. I do think Thomas Frank leaves. I think at some point, I don't know where he'll go. I really have no idea where Thomas Frank's going to go. But if he wants to make the move to take his managerial career to the next level, it's going to happen this year. I think 2025 is the year of Thomas Frank. I think he's going to make a move to another club. I think if I get my Tottenham one wrong, I'm going to get this one right. I do think that that's kind of a trade in my predictions as Thomas Frank leaves to Tottenham. Obviously they won't sign it. They won't have an English manager unless Ryan Mason's like interim or something like that, or they do hire an English manager and it's that short lived that then they go to Thomas Frank after that. Fulham, I think Marco Silva will stay put. I don't see him leaving. I think you will get to the Conference League. I think this time next year we're going to talk about you being a favorite for the competition as well. I think Fulham have a chance to go on and not only compete in the Conference League, but they could win the whole thing if they play their cards right this summer transfer window. Now we've got the two Manchester clubs to end it on. Manchester United, I think this time next year you're going to be in the top 6 race at the end of 2025. I think you will be. I think under Amarim, I think he can steady the ship, give him a preseason, give him a couple transfer windows. I think he could do it. I think just the biggest thing that you need to do, and it should be a New Year's resolution for Manchester United, is just show some patience. You need to have patience if you want Amarim to succeed here in Manchester. And lastly, Manchester City, you are going to spend next season in the championship. 2025, Manchester City is actually, I guess I shouldn't have picked Southampton to be top of the championship because they'll obviously Manchester City will be top and Southampton will be second in the championship. I should have probably prefaced that, but you'll get the point. Anyways, yeah, Manchester City, I think they find themselves guilty of 115 charges. I think that they lose a lot of players. I think they lose a lot of money as well. I think they have difficulties with their sponsors following the relegation, and their broadcast deals as well will be difficult to keep hold of. But that's all for me this one. My Premier League predictions for the 2025 season. Obviously, we have teams that will be promoted into the Premier League, so that'll be a little bit different. But let me know your bold prediction for your club or a rival club or just any club, or maybe even you have your own list of bold predictions for every single club. Comment that down below. I want to hear it. I want to talk about it in the comment section down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.